Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the second day of the European Forum on Music. I hope you all had a good rest after a good dance and a good concert yesterday, and of course, very inspiring sessions, impressive sessions, as I think. My name is Ruth Jacobi. I'm the other Secretary General of the European Music Council. You have already met my colleague Simone yesterday, who will also take it on again this afternoon. My pronouns are she and her, and I'm rather not very tall. I have brown hair getting grayish and blue eyes. And I'm very happy to open this morning where we will look at gender questions, but also at intersectionality, discrimination, and have interesting insights on that, I hope. We will start with some introductory words by Aysha Hussain from Keychange, and we then have a panel with several project presentations from partners of the European Music Council, members of the European Music Council, and after that we break for coffee and we then have focus groups, and I will talk about that. I will introduce that a bit later. So now we start with a short video introduction from Keychange, and then Aysha, the floor is yours. And if you want to move up, if you want to come forward and use the front rows, that might even improve your experience.
Hello, everyone. My name is Aysha Hussain. My pronouns are she, her, and I'm here on behalf of Keychange. I'd very quickly like to thank EFM and the European Music Council for having Keychange. And I guess we should really just get to it. Sorry, it's going to do a... here we go. On International Women's Day this year, Secretary General of the UN said that global progress on women's rights is vanishing before our eyes. Gender equality is growing more distant. On the current track, UN Women puts it 300 years away. These are obviously very sobering and depressing statistics, but we have to all do what we can in our lives to sort of push on gender equity. So the music industry has a gender problem. Just a quick note, so when we say music industry, it's interchangeable with music sector. So these statistics here just give a general overview of the gender imbalance throughout the music sector and the music industry. From UK radio stations to production, to lineups, to performing at electronic music festivals. So we can see here, for instance, from 12 UK radio stations, this is really, really sad. 1% of the top 200 airplayed tracks of 12 UK radio stations were made by only women or non-binary musicians in 2020, 2021. I definitely recommend everyone looks into the USC Annenberg Initiative's reports. They publish various reports on music, US focused, but it's still really important. So across a period of 10 years, they looked at 1,000 pop songs from the Billboard 100, and only 2.8% were created by women producers, and only 12.8% of songwriters were women, and only 13 of 1,756 production credits went to women of colour. Equally, who are an organisation based in Italy, they analysed the lineups of 38 Italian festivals last year, and of 775 acts, 18% of solo artists were women, and only 5% of bands featured at least one woman in their group. From electronic music perspective, Female Pressure did a survey around the world, and which showed that 26.9% of lineups in 2020-2021 were women, and non-binary artists only represented 1.3%. Other examples when we talk about pay disparity as well. In the UK, if you're a large organisation, you have to be transparent with your pay. So across the three major labels, Universal, Sony and Warner, the mean pay gap in 2021 was 31.9%. And I think they released last year's figures as not much of a difference there either. We also look at sexualized violence in European nightlife report, which shows, I mean, these are, again, unsurprising figures, but also quite depressing. 46.4% of women and 30% of trans and non-binary gender identities reported having always or often experienced some kind of normalized sexual violence when out at night, compared to 12.4% of men. So we're, you know, it's a tall, massive task, but we're sort of looking at all aspects of the industry, behind the scenes, and also at festivals from an audience perspective as well. This is a quick flowchart from Vic Bain from a report called Counting the Music Industry, and that's, again, like an overview of like you know, before you even get to the festival lineups, for instance, everything that leads up to it. And this doesn't also represent what also comes before that, when you consider education, initial access to the industry, and just attitudes towards, you know, who is the music industry inclusive for? Do people see themselves represented behind the scenes as well to consider a career in the music industry? So what we need is proactive action in all sectors of the industry simultaneously. It's not just up to the festival lineups. We need to look at every point leading up to it, every point leading up to award shows, who's being represented on the jury, who's on recruitment panels. There are so many various ways of looking at it, and everyone can make a change in what they do. This is just a nice picture of this year's talent development program selectees, which I'll get onto next, and I'll explain what exactly is Keychange. So Keychange is a Creative Europe funded project, which also has 13 partners across 12 countries. We have various aspects of the project. One part is the Keychange program, the Keychange talent development program, where every year we select 74 participants, half women and gender expansive. By gender expansive, we mean those that don't identify in the binary. So this also, it's an umbrella term for also trans, non-binary, agender, all the different gender identities that you can think of that don't fall into the male-female category. That's what we mean by gender expansive. And often women and gender expansive individuals, when they reach a certain point in their career, whether it's in the music industry side or as a musician, you hit that glass ceiling, that barrier. So we put forward emerging talent on our program, where we provide mentoring, training, showcases, and more, as you can see. I'd go into it a bit more, but it's all on our website. We're pressed for time, so I'll just carry on. And the Keychange Pledge, which was conceived right at the beginning. So we invite music organisations to sign the Keychange Pledge to achieve at least 50% representation of women and gender-expansive creators and professionals in one or more areas of their work. So, often when we think of representation, we're always thinking of what's on stage, in front of the stage, but we have to really look at every subsector of the music industry. This is just a quick overview of our partners. So cross-border collaboration has been really crucial as well. So we always talk about collective action. So we've Reeperbahn Festival, way out west in Sweden, Liverpool Sound City, so I won't carry on. But so we work with all these festivals, and our talent get placed in various festivals around Europe and Canada. This is one of our non-binary artists, Shamleon, from Norway, playing at Reeperbahn Festival in Germany, actually. So they've created a gender-neutral universe and inclusive space that draws from their experience of not belonging to create a safe space for themselves. So a little bit more on the Keychange Pledge. So the Keychange Pledge itself was launched in 2017. Now the language and also the world has changed significantly since then. So you can chart the changes also in the industry and I think society at large as well, when you look at even the way our language has changed and what we're doing as well. So initially it was 50-50, but now we say 50% women and gender expansive individuals. So the pledge originally was for music festivals and conferences to represent on stages by 2022. In 2018, there was a pledge expansion. So, of course, as we just looked at earlier, by the time you get to festival stage, there's everything else that's happening in between. So it's been expanded to all music organisations to achieve 50% women and gender expansive people represented in their work by 2022, or a self-determined time frame as well. So, having these targets for yourself as well, you have something to work towards, something to, it's the only way you can really track progress is through tracking that change. And so, we do ask each pledge signatory to outline their own ambitions when they do sign the pledge. And what can these pledge actions look like? So everyone here, of course, works in the music sector and is invited to also consider signing the pledge. What can this look like? So they're quite self-explanatory, and sometimes I think when you look at some examples, you can also apply it to other organisation types as well. So we've spoken about festivals already with their lineups. Conferences can also do the same when they're looking at the speakers, presenters and panelists. Orchestras can use that as a target for composers. Balance of senior staff. Staff could also apply to pretty much every organisation as well. Conservatoires can look at their students, lecturers, senior staff teams, and so on and so forth. Agents, publishers and labels could look at the balance of the artists that they sign. Charities, trade bodies could also consider the makeup of their board and staff whilst encouraging its own members to sign the Keychange Pledge as well. Some more examples, so venues and concert halls as well similarly could look at the stage lineups. Also, we have to really consider looking at senior staff and backstage staff as well. Sound technicians, booking team, and beyond. Broadcasters, you can look at the guests that they invite on their shows and the presenters. Publications could look at their own editorial staff balance, or when they're commissioning writers, editors, and photographers. And other organisations such as youth or education programmes, we'll have a few of those as well, that also look to applying the Keychange Pledge to their area of work. So Earlier this year, we shared the progress of the Keychange pledge and the results of the pledge action plan outlining the next steps. So we asked signatories to submit data on their pledge on an annual basis. And so of all our signatories, this report features more than 200 global pledge signatories, charting their progress over 5 years. And the pledge action plan has been created by Keychange based on the data provided by Erasmus University Rotterdam. The main conclusion was targeted action works. So when you've identified that area and you really look to making those changes and actually implementing strategies, sharing best practice, it works. And I will quickly get to why. So this is just a sort of overview of a breakdown also of the types of organizations. So it's still very much festival heavy, but we continue to encourage all music sector organizations and companies to sign the pledge. And the main outcome was that 64% of pledge signatories that reported are already achieving or surpassing their pledge targets. And if you can do that within a handful of years, and if everyone really put effort into it, that's why we say targeted action works. So we're not just saying we want to do things, and when you're signing the pledge, you're agreeing to proactively make those changes, chart that progress for yourself as well. The pledge action plan itself, so we're also moving beyond gender. So when we talk about sustainable change as well and urgent action throughout the music sector. So what do we mean by beyond gender? But very quickly, the action plan itself does highlight the progress made, challenges faced, and the next steps, as I just mentioned. And so the first point, beyond gender. So we're working towards gender balance within the music industry requires action that represent women and gender expansive people from all underrepresented backgrounds. So this is the intersectional focus when we are creating pledges. So the next step would be like, how can we then look to charting that progress and change? I also understand there are country-to-country challenges around data and what you can and can't collect. But again, these are things to bear at the back of your mind, or the forefront of your mind. But we really put a strong focus now on intersectionality in everything that we do. So not just different race and ethnicities, but also disabilities, social class. There's a huge socioeconomic factors throughout all of Keychange's activities. There are lots more intersections, but that's just to give you a general idea of how to work not just with gender parity in mind, but also considering all intersections. Second point is urgent action. So as with the pledge, really expanding that globally as much as possible. So we're also focusing on how to now proactively go about in different continents. It's quite maybe European heavy at the moment, but we need to bring about sector-wide change. We really need a more detailed, time-focused and intersectional pledge approach to our work. Global community, a little bit like what we're doing here, creating roundtables, workshops, conversation spaces for different sectors of the music industry where we can all share our best practice, information and tips for development and progress. And finally, education and activism. So we, on our website and what we do, everything that we put out front-facing, we signpost to a lot of guidelines and best practice across all intersections. And also, we look to supporting our signatories for when they monitor their work. And we also look to work with our partners, creating safe spaces, forums for activism, looking at training, and continue to signpost. Everyone here is doing fantastic work and looking at all the organizations and companies here. So how can we all sort of work together and we keep engaging with each other, swapping insights and best practice. And very quickly, there were challenges. I won't go into too much details, but I think one of the main challenges around meeting pledge targets is the societal attitude, which obviously seeps into the industry itself, where people are just so resistant to change. And yet also, pre-existing rules. How do you go about changing things that have been so set in their ways for decades? And of course, COVID. This is, sorry, I just select some pictures to give some context of what our participants also do. In the middle is Juba. She's British, based in Germany, is one of our innovators, and she's also a DJ who champions sounds from Africa and African diaspora. And on the left there is Katharine Arendt, who is a consultant in social justice, urban development, and club culture. So, when we speak about networks and connecting people, that's what we're all doing here as well, where we keep talking about these things and keep those conversations going and happening. This is Suna Margaret, who's one of our Keychange artists, Icelandic artists. Our Keychange talent development program, it also recognizes the need for one of the barriers is motherhood or parenthood, and so we provide extra bursaries and also around access, access needs as well, but that's her child there as well, so we also provide extra funds so that mothers or parents can take part in the Keychange project, and that should also kind of be a norm, so we try and push for that. So we do, as much as possible, try and live what we ourselves preach. And finally, it's the responsibility of every single member of the music industry to insist upon and bring about urgent, progressive, lasting change. It's quite simply what it is, I think. Yeah, I think this might actually, sorry if that was really quick, but you'll find me walking around today and tomorrow. So I don't mind if you want to just come up and talk to me, and if you want to find out more or have any other questions. That's me and Keychange in a nutshell.
Thank you very much, Aysha. That was a lot of information, I think. Some new terms even, so we might have to go into detail a bit more.
Absolutely.
Maybe in the focus groups later on. You will have one of them. But maybe there are some immediate questions right now for Aysha. Do we have mics for the plenary, please? So I see 1 and 2. One over there. The mics. One, the gentleman, if I may say that, in blue over there.
Good morning. Thank you for this inspiring presentation. I'm Stéphane Gros-Claude from France. I have 3 remarks and questions. The first one is, do you really think it's music industry which has a gender problem, or is it music as such in the society? We still have some representation, such as boys are playing guitars and girls are playing piano. Men are playing instruments and conducting orchestras, and women are singing and conducting choirs. So how can this project address to the basic education for music? The second is about expensive people. What about LGBT minorities and other minorities, and especially lesbophobia and homophobia, which are increasing actually? And the third one is, how many men have signed the pledge? Are there more women or men signing? Thank you.
Hi, thank you. So I'll try and cover it. I absolutely, it's definitely a societal issue, and I, as someone who lives at various intersections, can completely attest to that. And as mentioned before, that seeps into the professional sphere, what we do in the personal affects the professional. So I'm just trying to remember what you asked, sorry. The second, what was the...
The sectors, is that what I was...
Oh yeah, also you raised a really great point as well about, for example, like gendered instruments as well. Yeah, it's kind of difficult to cover all of those things, including the LGBTQI resistance to like trans lives and yeah. So when we say going beyond gender, it absolutely includes all of that. And I don't know if anyone's joining the workshop later, but we dig into all of these intersections as well. It's quite difficult to cover, and quick, as you saw, it's very information heavy. And it's a lot to digest, but they are absolutely all the things that we talk about. There's a lot of outreach to be done. I believe a great believer in like the grassroots education movement and looking to change attitudes. In our own communities. I come from. I'm an immigrant kid, a Bangladeshi background. I grew up in London. Me being here as well, and I also work in film and music. But it's very, in my own community, we have a lot of resistance against sort of, you're supposed to become a doctor, lawyer, solicitor. So the whole representation and visibility and visual representation of what we see is crucial and important. And going back to the gender expansive. Sorry, so when we say gender expansive, we absolutely mean, trans, non-binary, and all the gender identities there. And we've actually got, this year we have 2 or 3 trans participants on our program as well, and we give them a voice and platform on our socials as well. So I would definitely recommend everyone to follow our socials as well. We put out a lot of intersectional advice and information on there, including recommendations, best practice, things like that. So I hope that answers your question. Yeah, I love looking at our insights on our socials, and I really get upset when I see, 75% of our followers are women, 25% men, but we always say men have to be part of the conversation as well. And I have also been very, I work with some brilliant men as well who are very much in the conversation, but also give space to everyone. But it's a really difficult one. You are talking about changing societal attitudes as well at the same time. So, you're grappling with both. And that's quite difficult, but we definitely always include men in our conversations. That's, otherwise you're kind of preaching to the choir, as they say, so, yeah. Sorry.
Time a little bit. So we have one more question, and I'm afraid for this moment, this is all we can take, but there will be more possibilities to discuss.
Yeah, I'm Federico Rinaldi, manager of the European Concert Hall organization. We are, since some months now, working extensively on gender issues, inclusivity, accessibility to the arts, and what I'm trying to implement now is metrics, measurements, and I would like to know if you have any. Are you sharing any good examples of questionnaires, maybe, or simple indicators that we could start with, just to have a baseline and then measure progress every year?